Hello there, Capricorn. Thank you so much for stopping by for your deep dive reading. I've started doing these a little bit differently for each sign lately. And so you are the ninth deep dive that I have done as far as videos. I actually started this not thinking there would be a deep dive, thinking we would talk about 5 topics coming up over the next 28 days. This is going to be something that's good for the next 28 days. What has been happening is Spirit has been bringing up topics that end up all tying together anyway. And so this became the deep dive really quick. So I am not going to question what Spirit has to say. He's got a bigger picture than me. If this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. So we're going to start off by pulling 5 topics from the Lenormand deck. That's going to give us a general idea of what we're going to be talking about as we go through our 28 days or month of forecasts. And we will be expanding on what comes up on the Lenormand with this deck. This is the Hush Tarot. And then after we expand, we're going to look at advice or insights with the Light Seers deck. So we're just going to have a lot of cards on the table. I pick up each the cards for each topic as we go along, though. I don't like to have a big, messy, full table. So full is fine. Messy full is not fine. We had a card almost pop out for a topic, but almost only counts on horseshoes or hand grenades. So we didn't take it. Let's see what we do have. Okay, first topic here, Capricorns, is, oh, well, we're just diving right in. This has to do with love. Obviously, it's the heart card. A lot of people will try to put this automatically into some kind of romantic category. It very well could be. Not necessarily, though, so we don't really want to put the blinders on ourselves like that. We want to be open to the idea that this could be somebody else that we care about greatly. I have seen this card come up in spreads that had to do more with family members than with romantic partners. So we do want to be a little open. But in general, we can say for sure that our first topic is going to have to do with some kind of love, either good friend, family love, romantic love, whatever, something in that category. Now, kind of like rose quartz, it's good. This card can indicate all kinds of love, just like rose quartz is good for all kinds of love. Platonic, erotic, familial, all that good stuff. All right, so let's see what our second topic is going to be. After our love topic, what are we going to be looking at next for Capricorns? Okay, well, we've got the coffin showing up here. Please don't anybody worry, the coffin is not something that normally indicates an actual death. It does talk about sickness, illness, or something not being as healthy as it could be. I've had this card come up when finances are not as healthy as they could be, when a relationship is not as healthy as it could be, which we kind of have that implied with the heart in front of the coffin. We'll see if that is all tying in together or if this is something else. But yeah, this can talk about maybe somebody having an illness. So we'll see. We'll see what it is. We'll be expanding that to see a little more. All right, we are going to take our next topic card. Okay, contract or letter showing up as our next topic. So some kind of agreement. This is more of a formal, this would be something that would be taken seriously, possibly even notarized with the wax seal that we have on this envelope. Can be a literal contract, something that would be recorded at the courthouse even. Let's see what else we have. And this is Capricorn. Next topic we have, oh, the key. Oh, I like it. The key is, if you want to put keywords on the key card, that would be faux show, or certainly. So when we have the key show up, we're looking at something that is happening for sure, or that is certainly happening. And then after we have the key, what do we have next? Last topic for our next 28 days or month for Capricorn, the moon. Now this is very interesting. The moon doesn't mean exactly the same thing as it does in tarot. In the tarot, it means things that are where it's really hard to tell what the truth is. In the Lenormand, the moon talks about reflection, whether that is, mirroring another person. That's one type of reflection. It can also talk about reflection where we're really pondering some things deeply within ourselves. So there are going to be, there's different ways that this can come out, but I'm not expecting that there would be illusions as a part of it. That's the thing I want to be really clear with. For those of you who are familiar with tarot and not the Lenormand, this would not be illusions or secrets. This is more just quiet reflection. Sometimes this talks about something happening at night, and I have seen this come up for somebody who is moonlighting for some kind of work, like if they have a second job where they call it moonlighting. So, we have our topics. It's going to be interesting to see how they all come together in the end for this reading. Let's focus on the first topic, though. La da da da. Let's open it up and see what's going on here with love for my Capricorns. And I am recording this May 14th. It's going to hit the channel on May 15th. So you'll see it there. There being YouTube, Rumble, Facebook. I think I'm even going to share it on LinkedIn. Beep-a-dee-dee-dee-dee. I'm not sure if I share it on Facebook, if it goes automatically to Instagram or not. I should probably check that out. All right, now, let's look at love. Love. What's the love story for Capricorn during this time frame? All right, well, this is really interesting. We do have a Two of Wands showing up right off the bat. Two of Wands right off the bat says, you know what, I have a choice. So Capricorns, I think you've got a choice about something that has to do with one of your peoples that you care about. You have a choice, but you don't feel like you have a choice about something having to do with love. You feel like your back's kind of up against a wall and like you're being expected to choose a certain thing because other people are expecting you to choose a certain thing. So we definitely have some relationship issues going on here where there can be some tension being created because somebody that you love is expecting you to choose a certain thing, and it may or may not be that thing that you want to choose. With the Nine of Cups, I think what's going on here is, in spite of what somebody may be expecting you to choose, you're choosing those things that make you feel satisfied, that make you feel fulfilled, that make you feel happy. Nine of Cups is like a wish granted or a dream come true kind of card for a lot of people. I don't know that I see it like that randomly. I do see it as finding satisfaction and fulfillment, though. And we have the Four of Wands, which clearly indicates to me that the love that we're talking about has to do with family. So this could be romantic partner, or this could be like siblings, parents, children, something like that. But this has to do with family, and if it's not family, then we're looking at tribe, which are people that we consider family that just aren't blood related. So we've got something going on with family here where somebody from the family wants us to choose a certain thing, Capricorns. And we kind of feel like our back's against the wall, like we kind of have to choose a certain thing because of that. But what I'm seeing here is instead of going along with that, even though you're very well aware of what other people want you to choose, you are making your own decision because I think because the stakes are kind of high. Like if you choose what somebody else wants you to choose, I don't think you get your wish granted. I don't think you find that fulfillment or that satisfaction. So I think that you kind of have to choose what you want to choose here if you want to find that satisfaction or that sense of fulfillment in whatever this is. So a little bit of pressure coming in from the family. So far, I don't really get that this is a love reading, although this family member could be your spouse or your significant other. That could be. But I don't feel like this is like a new romance type reading for sure, even though we do have love central front and center. All right, let's look at your best advice or heads up around this situation. So best advice or insight. Best advice or heads up. Heads up, incoming. Let's see what we have. That one tried to plop out, but it didn't quite make it. Once again, only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades when we're talking about almost. Boop-a-doo-doo. Boop-a-doo-doo. Mm. Hmm. So, advice or heads up? Advice really is to be very analytical about this situation when it shows up in front of you. Really think it through very logically. Try to take any emotion out of this decision making process as you're looking at it. It shouldn't be that hard to do, actually. My Queen of Swords is, and this applies whether you're a male or a female, but my Queen of Swords is my person that, like, when they are in their full mojo, they are taking care of business, whether that's running the house, running their own business, managing somebody else's business. I mean, they are really good at making sure that everything flows smoothly and all the details are handled, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. So this is somebody who's really good at paying attention to detail. So this would talk about pay good attention to detail, take the feelings out of this, look at this logically as you're making this decision that you're very well aware you've got a tribe member or a family member who has already figured out what's the best thing for you to do. All right, I'm sure that's not sitting too well with the Capricorns, because any Capricorns I know that wouldn't sit too well with at least. Let's say that. Now, when we get into our next card for advice or insight, we have the Page of Swords in reverse. Now, my Page of Swords in reverse is digging in for the information. She is digging. She's doing research. So once again, this is a hat tip to this card, which talks about paying attention to detail. This also talks about doing your due diligence around this choice. And as you do your due diligence around this choice, I think as you're doing your due diligence, you realize more and more how important it is to follow something that really makes your eyes shine and makes your heart leap. Things that are exciting that make you feel satisfied and fulfilled. So I think doing this research, as you're researching this decision, I think you're finding out some things also about like the other choices you could make that are impacting things as well, but also about the choice that you would like to make. And we have the Seven of Pentacles here. Seven of Pentacles talks about payday for me. And so I don't know that this is necessarily a decision that leads to a paycheck, although for some of you, definitely it would. I would say there's a 50-50 shot. But I will say that I know for sure is that this card is saying, looking at this in a detail-oriented way, in a logical way, doing the due diligence and the research around this choice that you have that has the potential to bring you satisfaction, that's what's going to pay off. Doing that research is what's going to pay off here. And I think the reason that it's going to pay off, because remember, this is right underneath our Four of Wands card, the reason that this is going to pay off is because once you've done this due diligence, then you can say to this family member that expects you to go a certain way, yes, I could go that way, but if I go this way, these are the benefits that I have that I don't have if I go the way that you're thinking. So it looks to me like if you do your due diligence and your research, I think you're able to get your family member or your tribe member right on board with you too. So this does not have to be an argument or a debate. And it also doesn't have to be you just going along to kind of keep the peace. So due diligence is kind of the key here. Boop-a-da-doo-doo. Let's pick these cards up. And let's move on to the second part of our topic. Beep-a-dee-dee. We're going to set that off to the side, bring out topic number 2. Okay, so here we have the coffin. Remember I said this is just something that is not doing really well. Let's see what it is that's not doing really well here. Is this something that's financial? Is this a relationship? Does the house need repairs? What's going on here? For Capricorns, tell us about this coffin card, please. All right, what do we have? Oh, Justice, okay. Four of Cups. And the World card. What's going on here? I'm going to say that there's something that could be a legal decision that needs to be made. You could be in the middle of a lawsuit, Capricorn. But it doesn't have to be a lawsuit just because the justice card is involved. There's somebody, though, that is making some kind of decision about you. The decision that they're making looks like it's a fair decision. However, we have the Four of Cups, which basically says it's not really the decision that I was hoping for. I was hoping maybe for a little bit more than a fair decision. I was hoping for some leniency or for some grace. Now, I don't know. This could be, for some of you, this could even be somebody who is like, maybe you want to be a contractor for them, and what they're offering as far as money, you're just like, that's ill. That is not right. That is ill. And I don't mean like sick in a good way. I mean like, uh, take its temperature, see if it's got a fever, kind of sick. Okay? So, or ill. Guys, I'm Generation X. I talk mostly like Generation X. So y'all should know that and be aware and cognizant. So anyway, it looks to me like whatever this decision is kind of disappointing to you. But it does bring something to an end. And there's other cards that can talk about bringing something to an end in tarot that would say something a little bit different about the ending and the mood around the ending. This card, talking about bringing something to an end, tells me that whatever this is that's brought to an end, even if it's a court case that just comes to an end, you may be disappointed. Looks like you are. But this is also, it gives you an opening or a space in your life for something new to come in that is going to take your energy and something that could feel more rewarding. All right? So you may have some kind of court case that ends up disappointing. I don't think it ends up terrible because it's fair. It's not corrupted. It's not biased, whatever this decision is. And just the idea that that decision is made, whether it's being made in court or being made by somebody else that has influence in your life, but the idea that this decision is being made is allowing you now to move forward. I think what has been not doing well before is that I feel like the waiting for this decision to finally come down has taken energy and effort away from other things you could be focusing on in your life. And I think this is almost like a release right here. This is, woof, I am free of dealing with trying to wait and see what's going to happen. Now I'm free to move on to the next phase of my life, whatever that might happen to be. Okay, so let's look at best advice or insight or best advice or heads up around this. Almost, but almost, once again, does not count, except if we're playing horseshoes or hand grenades. Horseshoes and hand grenades. That's an old country saying. I guess it's country. I got it from my dad, who was in the army during Vietnam. Maybe it wasn't a country saying. Maybe it was an army saying. I don't know. But I've heard it all my life. All right. What do we have for advice or heads up here? Beepity dee dee, beepity dee dee, beepity dee dee, beepity dee. Look at that. Look at that. What is going on here with you guys, Capricorns? I mean, you've got two really fantastic cards here, happiness making cards here, and then you've got the Queen of Cups in reverse. I think you're expecting good things from whatever this decision is, whether it's in court or out of court. I think you're expecting wonderful stuff. And like I said, in spite of the idea that you're disappointed, this looks like a fair decision to me. So I can't say that this is something that's made in a corrupt or a biased way. And it's interesting. We've got the 9 of Pentacles coming up here about this decision. So I think this decision is one that impacts pretty much you. Like you're receiving the direct impact of it. And actually, with the 9 of Pentacles, like that decision really is a pretty good one, because the Nine of Pentacles is somebody who is independent, self-sufficient. They're not relying on anybody else for anything else. And so I think whatever this decision is, it acknowledges that independence and self-sufficiency of you. Now, look here, we've got the Sun, which is happiness. This is a happiness card for me. Happiness, truth, authenticity, feeling nurtured, feeling supported, feeling empowered. And we've got it right over my pity party card that says, man, I'm really disappointed. Woe is me. This is Spirit saying, it's going to be a good thing to reevaluate your perspective on this, even though you're disappointed and you might have hoped that things would have gone in a little bit of a more lenient way. The outcome that you have here is still way better than you were a year ago or 6 months ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. This is actually really good. This allows you to express yourself fully and genuinely. Okay? And then we have the Queen of Cups in reverse. I don't know what to think about this. This thing is done and over. It's final. And here we have you with the Queen of Cups in reverse, and you're just... My Queen of Cups in reverse is... First of all, she's put up with a lot of stuff. Okay? And she's been trying to pretend everything's okay for a while. And somebody just puts the last straw on her back. And she explodes. She explodes basically like a landmine. That's what it feels like to the people around her, like a hidden landmine with emotion. This is a volcanic emotional explosion. And it's because it's not just about that last straw that went on this person's back. It's about everything building up till now. Okay? So this tells me that once this comes to an end, you're having a volcanic emotional explosion. Are you crying with happiness? Maybe that's what's happening here. Because everything else that's leading up to this, I do think, okay, here's what's happening. You're just being overwhelmed with emotions. I think you're being overwhelmed with emotions. By the time this thing winds up and gets to the end, there's probably a lot of different emotions going on inside of you. Because this feels like this has been kind of a phase of your life where you've been really dedicated to doing this thing and making sure that it's as good as you can get it, making sure it's right. You have all the right information. You're saying the right things to the right people at the right time. And so when this comes to an end, there's a sense of liberty here, and we see that sense of liberty right here. There's a sense of liberty here, but there's also this, I feel like the world is kind of changing for you right here. I don't have a tower showing up, but I do feel like the world is changing as you transition from whatever this old phase was into this new phase because of this decision that's being made. And so as far as, something not being very healthy or not being very well, by the time we get to the end of this spread, I think you're totally healthy and you're totally well. I do think you're a little overwhelmed with emotions. That's something that talking with friends can help. That's something that journaling can help. It's not insurmountable, but you've got these two really happy cards here. So whatever was wrong at the front part of this topic, by the time we get to the end of this topic, we see that just completely being in the rearview mirror. Okay? And I think it's a relief. I think it's overwhelming to you. You might not have even thought that this could happen. Whew. I'm just thinking about how this would tie into what we saw with the love thing. I think you've moved forward. You got the other person to agree that it was a good idea to move forward. I think you were questioning before this was all done, was this my best move to actually move forward with that decision that I made before? All right. It does look like a rough road to hoe, but it looks like it ends well. So we'll take it ends well. Now, let's look at my letter or contract. And let's see more about this. Tell me what Capricorns need to know about this letter or contract, please. Boobity-doo-doo. For some of you, I'm going to say for some of you, should we take that? That's too many. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's too many. For some of you, I'm going to say it feels like some of you may be getting out of some kind of confinement, whether it's jail or whatever, but there may be some kind of probation, and that might have been the, the emotional reaction to the idea of being on probation, even though happy to be out of jail, or whatever that confinement was. It just feels like it was confining. This kind of feels like the agreement of, okay, moving forward. There's still a little bit of restriction left there, actually. Yeah, let's see what comes up here. And I think this is the contract or agreement that you have to agree to move forward into your next phase, whatever your next phase is that we saw from the previous step. So let's see more about this. Now, we had the Justice card before. Now, this is interesting. This just really leads me into more of the probation thoughts, honestly, as I look at this. Like there may be an agreement for probation. The Justice card in reverse says that this is not a fair decision now. So if you were in confinement and you were able to come out of confinement, that was a fair decision. This probation decision, if that's what it is for you, and this is not going to apply that specific, it's very specific, so that won't apply to everybody. So for others of you, if this is not jail, just think, where were you limited or restricted in your life? And then these are going to be limitations and restrictions being lifted, but modifications that are lighter weight coming in, okay? But I'm going to talk about it, how it's hitting me, because I know at least one of you, this is exactly how it's showing up. Otherwise, I wouldn't be getting it in this way. Probably more than one. Okay, so this letter or this contract or this agreement, I don't think that this is really fair. But with the Four of Cups showing up here, I think what's going on with the Four of Cups in reverse this time, I think that, yes, it's disappointing, but you're not letting that disappointment get to you. So I think you might have had an initial breakdown about this, and now you're saying, you know what, okay, it is what it is, but it still offers me the opportunity to do this or do that or the other. I've still got a decent amount of freedom from the old restrictions here. And so I think you're looking at the opportunities that this affords you instead of sitting around and moping in a pity party. Now, World card in reverse basically tells me even though this time frame is over, because we had the World card right side up there, this time frame where we're dealing with the more limited version of restrictions, this is not over. This is going to take a little time to get to the end of. All right, so let's look at our best advice or heads up here. Whew. Best advice or heads up. Boopity-doo-doo, boopity-doo-doo, boopity-doo. And this could also be like somebody that you know being confined and then being released with lighter restrictions. This could even be like if you have a dog that bit somebody, then they got taken to the pound. Well, you got them out of the pound, but then you have to agree that, you're going to do whatever. I don't know what all they would have you agree to, but whatever. Doesn't have to be exactly you, but this is definitely in your energy pretty strong. So it's playing out in a way in your life that you're feeling the impact of it. All right, so let's see. What do we have here for advice or heads up? Okay, so First of all, we have the Page of Pentacles. This is some kind of opportunity. For some of you, you may be being offered some kind of job situation, or, there's some kind of opportunity showing up here with that Page of Pentacles. This is good news about money or about material goods. We have the Lovers coming up in reverse right behind that. It's interesting how this comes up. I really think that it may be that this opportunity is only available once you can work your way through whatever this contract or agreement is and become disentangled from that. All right. It doesn't really matter, though, as far as emotionally, because with this Three of Swords in reverse, even though this is going to take some time to become disentangled from that, the Three of Swords in reverse tells me that whatever it is that's good news about money or about material goods, it gives you something to look forward to and something to think about, and it gives you hope. And so it's bringing healing to a worry that you really had or a heartache that you really had. So some of you could be getting some kind of job offer or some other, maybe this is, this is some kind of housing offer, but you have to be disentangled from this before it happens. Well, now you've got something to look forward to. So we see you starting to have a little bit more hope for where your life is going from here. Okay. All right. Let's look at number 4. Topic number 4. It's actually number 33. This is the key. Remember, this is for sure. A key can also open a door, though, too. Maybe this is released from the weight of that. We'll see. We'll see. Could be a house key. We'll see what shows up. What do Capricorns need to know about this key? What would you like to say about this key for Capricorns? And you guys, I would love to understand how this is actually playing out in your life. If you don't mind putting that in the comments below, of course. You guys who have been watching me know. Inquiring minds want to know. Which basically is a nice way of saying Amista can be nosy. And she does want to know how this is playing out. She's curious. I am curious about how this is playing out, actually. This is not my typical type of thing that comes up in my readings normally. But we don't have typical people going to jail right now either, do we? All right, let's see what we have. We're being constricted. Let's see. Okay, so what do we have? Well, first of all, we have the 7 of Pentacles in reverse. We have the 9 of Pentacles in reverse. And we have the Page of Swords coming up in reverse. Lordy. Okay, I don't know who's watching this, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Please don't trespass. I feel like somebody out there that's watching this is thinking about trespassing somewhere where they're picking a lock with that Page of Swords in reverse. Or maybe getting around it electronically. What would that be? Hacking a lock? Maybe. If you're that person, please don't do that. That never really leads to anything good. We do have this idea of the 7 of Pentacles in reverse, which talks about this idea that that you have a payday that's coming in slower than you were expecting, or maybe somebody's kind of messing with it and they've forgotten to pay you for a couple hours, or they forgot to pay you overtime, or maybe they paid you overtime and they forgot to pay you the regular time, or maybe the paycheck, maybe the whole thing is just slow coming into you with that 7 of Pentacles in reverse. There's delays with a paycheck. There's delays or problems with a paycheck. You do need to rattle somebody's cage. You don't need to break in and take it yourself. Okay, there's a difference there. The 9 of Pentacles in reverse, though, does talk about that this leaves you short. This leaves you short of money whenever this happens. So I can see why you're frustrated and you want to do something about it. And then we've got this Page of Swords. Page of Swords basically says, other than somebody's trying to pick that lock, but it also says, do your research, do your due diligence. In other words, be keeping a log of all the hours you're owed or all the bonuses that you're owed, and put that all together. Whenever you go to rattle somebody's cage, make sure you have all your documentation lined up so that you can show this person, this is what you owed me, this is what you actually gave me, this is the difference, this is why I'm saying that there's the difference, so that you can reconcile the books, basically. But this is saying, put all that information together, do your research, make sure you've got all your ducks in a row before you go to this person. And that's, once again, with the key here, that's for sure, certainly, make sure you've got your stuff together. All right? And as Capricorns, I would be very surprised if you didn't. That would not be your norm. I feel like we may have shifted topics here now. For some of you, all of this may have been about somebody else, and this may be getting into you now. But it all layers in together. Every aspect of our life layers in with the other aspects. Let's look at the best advice or heads up around this situation. Oh, now this is interesting. So you've got a Queen of Pentacles. Doesn't have to be a female. Queen of Pentacles is just somebody who romantically is interested in men. But you've got a Queen of Pentacles here who actually has plenty. They have an abundance, and it's right over this payday in reverse. I think that, look how they've got their eyes closed in that card. And their arms are crossed, their legs are crossed. This tells me that this person is not going to be so open to hearing that they owe you more money. That would explain why we have this need for full documentation before we go to this person. All right. Empress in reverse. I think that you should expect that whenever you talk to this person about the money that they owe you, I think you should expect that they're not going to be, this is not going to be an easy thing where they say, oh, yeah, I see, we did miss that. You're going to have to actually prove it. So I think just with that Empress in reverse, just know that. I mean, Spirit is really hammering that part of this message hard. Like, make sure all your paperwork is together. And then with the Two of Wands, something's going on where this person is going to give you some kind of choice once you go in there with all your paperwork. And I don't think that you really wanted either one of these options or however many options that they give you, but this is going to be the choice they offer you. It may be something like, well, yeah, I can see where we messed that up. We can attach that to your next check, or it won't come out on your next check, but it'll come out on the check after. Or, it's really not that significant. We could just let it go. I think you would rather that they just give you the money right now. I don't see that being an option that they offer. You may have to bring that option up. Not sure that you're going to actually get that option, though, to be honest with you, even if you do bring it up. But it does look like you can get an appropriate response from this person, but you have to have all your ducks in a row when you get ready to go in and talk to them for that to happen. And here's the other thing that I need to counsel you on, because I keep hearing it, and this isn't the first time in this reading I've heard it. You're not going to get that many chances to talk about this. So if you go into this person's office and you say, look, you shorted me by this much money, but let's say by $50, whatever, $500, doesn't matter. You shorted me by this much money, and I really need you to pay me. If you don't have your ducks in a row, that person is not going to give you a second chance to come in and explain that very easily at all. They don't take you seriously because you don't have your ducks in a row. They're going to think that you're scamming if you don't come in without all your ducks in a row. And once that happens, they're not going to be very interested in taking another appointment with you to talk about it, because why would they talk to a scammer who's trying to get over on them? Okay? So make sure before you talk to them, you have your paperwork right. It's going to make your life so much easier if you do that. Okay? Now, last topic, Capricorns. reflection. Okay. What would you like to tell Capricorns? Or it could be something happening at night. What do Capricorns need to know about this moon card that came up in the Lenormand for them? Beep-a-dee-dee-dee, beep-a-dee-dee, beep-a-dee-dee-dee-dee. All right, here we go. Oh my goodness. So we're definitely talking about reflection where you're doing some significant pondering, going in and doing some pondering. Okay. Now this is really interesting how this shows up. All right. So first of all, this Eight of Swords talks about this idea that there's something that you're second guessing or you're thinking in circles on. And so the reflection is kind of the answer here. With the Four of Swords in reverse, this talks about, I am looking at things more objectively with that reflection here. I'm looking at things more objectively. I'm pulling out the feelings, kind of like how we saw that Queen of Swords earlier. I want to look at this situation objectively before I make any decisions. And the Hermit card really kind of says sort of the same thing. It says I'm taking some time by myself so that I'm not influenced by anybody else about this situation. And I am thinking this over. I am literally reflecting on this situation to find the best solution moving forward. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. There's something here definitely that you're reflecting on. You could be reflecting on a move, but you don't have to be. I really don't feel that that's strong. You could even be reflecting on why were you second guessing this or why were you thinking in circles about this to start with. There's definitely something here that you are detangling and working on. All right, let's look at best advice or insight around this situation. Best advice or heads up for my Capricorns, please. Okay. Okay. This really talks about that you have some choices in front of you. And this is what you're second guessing here. You're second guessing, where do I go from here? Basically, because Hermit's always trying to figure out where do I go from here and set new priorities. But you're second guessing, where do I go from here? And with this card and this card, this says the best way for you to figure that out is to cut off communications with people who are too close to this situation for you. Okay? Because you've got somebody here that's really wants you to choose a certain thing. Back to the same situation we saw at the beginning of this reading. They really want you to choose a certain thing. The best thing you can do is kind of cut communications with them so that you can think in peace. Thinking in peace. Okay? And if that means that you have to actually go to a different place to be able to think in peace, you might have to do that. Some of you. Then we have our Two of Swords here. Two of Swords really tells me that it's only once you've taken that time to reflect without other people giving you input, that's when you can make your decision about where do you go from here. So you want to be really careful about your decisions, that you're not letting other people push you into decisions, that you're trusting yourself. It feels to me like throughout this reading, there's kind of this energy of, but I don't trust myself to make good decisions. Maybe you feel like you haven't had enough practice making good decisions, or you feel like, some of your decisions in the past were less than stellar. That could be too. But Spirit is telling you here, take the time to really reflect on those decisions that you're making, especially the ones that are more important than what's for supper tonight. Take some time to really reflect on those decisions and trust yourself. Because if you give yourself the time to think things through, you're going to make much better decisions than if you listen to what somebody else is putting in your ear. So whatever somebody else is putting in your ear, you may have somebody in your life that, doesn't make the best decisions. And if you look back, some of the decisions that you kind of question maybe were influenced by that person from the past or someone like them. You can trust your own sense of grounding on making your own decisions much more than you can trust what other people are putting in your ear. And it looks here like Spirit really wants you to have confidence in that and recognize that. Recognize that you have good judgment. You have good judgment. And you have much better judgment about what needs to happen in your life than anybody who is not living your life does. So use that good judgment so that you can move forward productively and happily. That's what this is saying. Think about things. Think before you take action. Don't just do what somebody else says just because you're used to listening to other people or just because you are not feeling confident about your decisions. No, your decisions are better than theirs. Okay? So that's what we have, Capricorn. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it so much. Of course, you can see my website right there in the corner. All you have to do if you want to find out about my readings or any of my other services, which I offer a bunch of them, getting ready to teach some classes actually even, check those out. Sign up for my newsletter if you haven't already. And yeah, let's keep in touch. I'll see you guys back on the next video. Peace out.